Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to kneel in front of you this morning. We ask that you be with the men in Africa and whatever they're doing right now, that you give their blessing and protect them. That you be with all Andrews as she heads to Russia, and that you send this message with her, that she may reach the hearts that you would have her to reach. That you be with Katrina as her little baby is sick, and we know how heavy that is on a mother's heart and father's heart, and that you somehow bring them to the truth that we have come to understand and love. That you be with Kathy Brown and the injury she is needing to recover from, that you bless that healing. That you with Brittany, and that somehow, Lord, that you heal her if it is to your honor and glory, and whatever is in your plan for her. We also ask that you are with Tanya's parents as they are thinking about moving here, and that you can help them to find a place that they need to be here if they are to be here, and if they are not to be here, that you find them a place where they are to be, and be with Jack as he is sick, be with Karen and Paul as they go to comfort their family today and the loss of her mother. And you give them a peace about them, and let them turn their hearts more fully to you in this time of grief. And any other requests that I've forgotten, my little brother, you be with him and his choices and his way, and be with my family too, and all the families represented here. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for everything you've done for us, for the rich blessings, and please send your Holy Spirit as we study. In Jesus' name.
For those of you that are watching on the internet, the little buzzy noises are the flies that are getting on the microphone.
It was only 2 days ago. It looks like the flies have died out because of the temperatures the last couple of days. But they'll be back.
And Michael's going to take care of them before we start each morning with the fly swatter.
You're sure that it sounds better?
With that, yeah, for sure. This one's kind of echoey where it's hollow, It's not real good.
You got that?
The lapel.
Brother Michael?
The lapel's much better.
You understand?
I see what he's saying, the echo. But my point was that we can hear you loud and clear with just that mic.
Brother Jeff, I went and I took the 4 eunuchs' name and I found the meaning of them, and I thought that the meaning is pretty profound. Also of the...
Yeah, but I'm not going there yet.
But I just want to let you know that I did that.
The 4 eunuchs.
The 7. Sorry.
Yes. Tara Marie sent those in too. I don't know that they're the same as yours. Depends on what dictionary you're looking from. But I want to go to the book of Ruth. And just briefly, chapter 1. And there's someone on the internet that's watching. Maybe it's only them, but maybe it's everyone on the internet, and they either haven't kept up or they missed why we're placing Ruth at 9:11. So let's just read chapter 1 of Ruth, and then put it back in the record for those that we might have went too fast for about why Ruth is 9:11, because as we bring Esther to a close, we're going to tie it in with Ruth. "22 verses. We're really outnumbered in here with girls today. 3, 6, 9. There's 10 of us. That's 2 verses each. Where's Jim? Oh, it's working. "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land." This is one of the questions. "And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons, and the name of the man was Elimelech, the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah, and they came into the country of Moab and continued there."
"And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she left and her 2 sons, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth, and they dwelled there about 10 years.
And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread.
Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me.
The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people.
And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and should also bear sons.
Would ye tarry until they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her.
Michael?
And,
Oh, sorry, no.
and she said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people, and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and whither thou longest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God.
You can't get by without a Bible
Here.
in a Bible class.
No, I mean I can listen as we're doing it. The point is you get up and move as we're doing it, and then I follow. And it's hard to follow along with.
I'm not going to move while you're reading.
You already did.
Get your Bible.
I can't anticipate what's going on at the same
Tyler
time.
does just fine.
No, it's hard to film.
That's good for him. That's
Keep
good
on
for him.
track. I know how it is.
It's verse 7. Oh, just keep going on and I'll catch up.
Jason, 17 and 18.
How many? Okay.
2.
Where thou diest will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. When she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her.
So they went until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass when they come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved, and they said, Is this Naomi? And she said unto them, Call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me.
I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me again empty. When then call ye me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest.
Now, if you remember when we went through Ruth, we made our arguments about 9/11 more from the last 3 chapters than from this chapter. But at least we can remind ourselves of why 9/11 is marked as the beginning of this story from this chapter to help clarify it for those people that are watching. But let's go backwards. Verse 22, what's the barley harvest?
It's the first one.
It's the first one.
It's pretty.
During the Passover.
And so, when's the Passover?
Sunday.
14 of the first.
The 14th day of the first month. So, when is the first fruit offering?
On the 5th.
On the 16th.
On the 16th day of the first month. So when do they have to cut the first fruit offering? If Jesus was on the cross on Friday, slept in the tomb on Sabbath, and they presented the first fruit offering on Sunday.
Sometime before.
Sometime before. So this is in the time period close to the first day of the first month.
Yes.
Okay, that's that logic there. In verse 20, what do we see there?
Name
Mara.
change, Mara, which means Miriam or Mary.
But just a name change. There's a covenant. Wherever that lines up on one of these waymarks, there's going to be a covenant mark. And you could mark a covenant in 9/11, the Midnight Cry, and the Sunday Law. So you haven't solved it, but we put it in the history of before the Midnight Cry. right? Or before 9/11, if 9/11 is 14th day of the first month. So what's verse 19? It's an inquiry. Where's the inquiry typically marked?
Typically marked on 11.
No, it isn't.
The midnight cry.
The midnight cry. What is the first mention, so to speak, the point of reference for the inquiry? Where's the inquiry? Where do we get that?
The Queen of Sheba.
No, that's a proof text to it. What is this?
Mary, John.
No, what prophecy is that? There's 2, maybe 3 primary prophecies. What is it?
Daniel 11.
It's
Isn't
Matthew
it-
25. It's the parable of the 10 virgins, and Ezra 7:9. That's our point of reference, and it's Ezekiel 12:23. At the end of the world, you have the effect of every vision, and that the template for that vision is put in place by Ezra 7:9, the first day of the first month, first day of the fifth month, 10th day of the seventh month, and it's a fulfillment of the parable of the 10 virgins. So, what's your primary point of reference for the
Matthew chapter
inquiry?
25, when the foolish virgins asked the wise for oil at the midnight cry.
Yeah, give us of your oil. Okay. So the inquiry is typically the midnight cry. Right? Okay, so now let's go back to verse 1, the famine in the land. Where do we more often than not place the famine?
The midnight cry.
At the midnight cry, and secondarily at the Sunday law. And that's because of fractals. You can show a famine for the virgins of Adventism as a whole, the priests and the Levites at the Sunday law. But there's a famine for the false priests at the midnight cry. But where are we placing this famine? At 9/11, why? How can we do that?
I think from Genesis 26, but
You think from Genesis 26. Pardon me?
It's Bethlehem, Judah. They traveled away and came back.
No, that's after the fact. You have to place the famine. Why does he leave for a famine? Okay, Genesis 26 is okay, but explain it to us.
But there's a famine in the land of Egypt, in the land, and the Lord appeared to Isaac and tells him not to go, not to leave.
And so what's that mean? Is Genesis 26, 9/11?
Genesis 26 is 9/11 because the old paths are filled in, all the old wells are filled in. And then Isaac, when he stays, he's blessed with abundance and he gets very wealthy, and then he digs out the wells, and that's returning to the old paths at 9/11. That's
But then eventually you have to.
How do you show those wells are the old paths?
the well Beersheba would be the one I thought. Beersheba is the well of the oath, well of the 25:20, and that's where they meet, isn't it? Where Abimelech and Isaac meet.
That's where they make their covenant?
Yeah, the well of Beersheba.
But why does that make it the old path?
Because the well of the oath is the
You don't know, do you?
20.
It's not popping into your head. Does anyone know his answer? He's going to go to Genesis 26 and make a claim, and you don't even know how to uphold that claim.
I thought Numbers 9:19 when it talks about that they had to stay when the cloud wasn't moving.
That follows.
The wells were
But
different.
he's trying to use Genesis 26.
It's the well of the oath, and the oath is the 25:20.
Okay, so keep your finger in Ruth and go to Genesis 26. I'm not saying necessarily that he's wrong, but his claim about the old paths that you're all willing to let him get away with isn't upheld in Genesis 26. Verse 1, and there was a famine in the land besides the first famine in the days of Abraham.
Because there was a famine in Abraham's time.
Oh,
And
where's
now-
that?
Where?
Yeah.
The famine in Abraham's time?
It's in Genesis 22. If you don't have the story of Abraham, and this is the first thing that's mentioned in chapter 26, you don't have a justification for calling it the old path.
But I was going to say Abraham's isn't marked at 9/11.
Well, It don't matter whether Abraham's mark at 9/11. You're talking about the old past.
Okay.
That's not the point. What happens in Genesis 22?
Abraham's supreme test.
21. Abraham in Genesis 21,
Isaac.
verse 22.
And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Pichol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all thou doest.
Keep reading.
Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned.
And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well of water which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not what hath done this thing, who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither did yet I heard of it, but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave to them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves, and Abimelech said unto Abraham, what meaneth these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs thou shalt take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me, and I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because they swear both of them. This is the well of the oath, the well of the oath being the 7 times. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. What connection does this have with Genesis 26?
Because Isaac meets with these 2 titles, Abimelech and
Phicol all over again.
In the same situation, the wells have
But
been
those
filled
aren't
in.
really men, they're titles,
They're
right?
those
The
titles.
king and his general.
Mhm.
Abimelech's the king, Phicol is his general, but this is so many years later they can't be the same guy. And what are they going to have an issue over?
These wells.
These
have
wells.
been filled in.
Same issue that Abraham had
So
over
they
the
make a
wells.
covenant.
They make a covenant again.
Second time.
So this is, who's Abraham in this story?
The Millerites.
The Millerites. Who's Isaac?
The 100 us.
Us. So that's the angle of the old past. So when do you go back to the old past? 9/11.
9/11, when the wells were done.
I'm saying you have to have Abraham in the story to prove the old past.
That to me
I
is a stretch to prove the old past. I would never be able to justify that one.
Why?
Because I don't know, I understand the 2 stories, but I don't know how in the world that's going to prove that there was famine at 9/11. It just makes no sense.
Okay, where are you at the old past?
You're at the well of oaths,
No, at the old past in our history. Where do you return to the old past?
9/11.
Okay, at 9/11. So you're staying at 9/11. Now go to Genesis 26.
Yeah.
Because Genesis 26 is the repeat of this story of Abraham.
And when you bring this together with what follows, the next logic from Numbers 9, it makes a lot of sense. If you
Yeah.
go-
Okay, so, and there was a famine in the
26
land.
what? Oh.
Verse 1, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham.
So it ties those 2
So-
texts together.
Yeah, and when you see this history, you're going to know that there was a famine in the days of Abraham too. Okay? And Isaac went into Abimelech, king of the Philistines, under Gerar, and the Lord appeared to him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham the father. This is the 7, the oath of Beersheba. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all nations of earth be blessed. He's renewing, confirming the covenant with Isaac that he gave to Abraham. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my commandments, my statutes and my law, and Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, She is my sister. She's repeating Abraham's history instead of saying she's my wife. In verse 8, Abimelech takes Rebekah, because he thinks it's Isaac's sister, in verse 9, and Abimelech called Isaac and said, Behold, of a surety she is thy wife, and hast thou said, She is my sister? And Isaac said, Because I said, Lest I die for her. And Abimelech said, What is this thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have lied with thy wife, and thou shouldest have brought guiltiness upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, He that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death.
In verse 8, Abimelech doesn't take her. He sees them walking.
Sporting.
Yep.
Verse 18. They separate in verse 18. And Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. And he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found the well of springing water, the well of life. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, The water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him, strife. And they digged another well and strove for that also, and he called that the name of that Sitnah, which is hatred. And he removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not, and he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beersheba, and there the Lord's going to appear to him again.
Where's Michael?
He's
coming. He's
Oh,
in
he
verse.
comes later.
Yeah, he's in verse 26.
26, and Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzaph, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain. So you have parallel histories.
Okay.
This is Abraham's the history of the Millerites. Isaac's the history of the 144,000. And Isaac is digging out the old paths that have been filled in by the Philistines.
Yeah.
He's returning to the old paths. He's recovering the old path truths. And this, what truth on the 1843 chart is being emphasized here?
The 25.
The 2520. Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second witness to the 2520 being rediscovered?
Yeah,
Josiah. Okay, so when it comes to the old past, the 2520 is the one that the scriptures emphasizes. It's the one that's dug out of the ground again. But in this history where Isaac is representing our history, there's a famine in the land. He's told not to go, and it's 9/11 because he's digging out the old path.
And then when you understand that too, he's told not to go, but then he gets blessed abundantly. So he has faith and he's blessed with the riches of heaven. But then Elimelech in the story of Ruth, he has no faith, he leaves and he dies.
Mm.
So there's this contrast of two characters
This
of
is the
people during the
everlasting
famine
gospel.
land.
Right.
Isaac and Elimelech.
Yeah.
So once you have that in place, you see how many witnesses do you need to establish something? Two. So on these waymarks, you have a famine. Everyone agrees that the Sunday law and the midnight cry. There's reason to expect that there's a famine at every waymark. Even when probation closes, is there a famine?
The biggest of all time.
And what about 1989? Was there a famine?
Well, darkness is a famine. Darkness, you're not.
No, darkness was before that.
You're up to that point, yeah. But you're coming out of darkness, and there's still darkness going on, underlying.
What is the determining factor of the famine?
Famine of the word of God.
Spiritually.
Oh, water.
It's how you perceive it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I'm for some not further.
If you're one of the wise that is understanding the increase of knowledge at the time of the end, you're not having a famine, you're having a feast. But if you're one of the foolish that's fighting the increase of knowledge, you're in a famine.
So it's subjective famine.
Yeah.
Amos 8.
Yeah.
I have written down here Amos 8, 11 through 13.
Yeah.
Famine.
Yeah, and Amos 8, 11 through 13, the foolish virgins that think they're in a famine, and they are in a famine, what are they doing?
They're running to and fro.
They're running to and fro in God's Word. And at the time of the end in Daniel 12, what takes place? By the wise. They run to and fro in God's Word. Same expression. So in Daniel 12, you have the wise running to and fro, benefited from the increase of knowledge. But in Amos 8, you're at the close of that history, and now the foolish are trying to run to and fro, and they're finding out there's a famine.
Then why does it come at the end, running to and fro? Daniel 12.
Because they get scared and they realize, oh, we got to find the messages these people were telling us about, but it's too late. They go to look real quick, but they just can't find it.
Was that your question?
It's like the
So I
Yeah.
thought it was for us before running to and fro.
Yeah, we run to and fro at the time then because we're the wise.
That's what I'm saying.
We're
Yeah.
who are we?
No,
When you have a person in the scriptures that's illustrated as
The brains.
gathering together the increase of knowledge, running to and fro, gathering together, who's that? Joseph. Joseph's gathering the increase of knowledge. But the foolish virgins,
building houses.
yeah, they're building their house upon the sand, not upon the rock.
A question on Genesis 26. The fourth well that they're digging, that the servants of Isaac is digging, is that their well, or that's not, or is that a well that Abraham also digged?
I think it's one that Abraham dug because
It says in the day, and Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father.
Right here on 25 it says, and he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. And then on 32, and it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said to him, we have found water. And he called it Sheba, which means oath. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day. Is that the same well that Abraham did, or was that the well that Isaac did with his servant?
I don't think that necessarily means that he dug a new well. That's what they were doing, was digging out the well.
And there's 4 of them, 4 in his method.
It looks like there's 5 to me.
Really? Okay.
There was only 4 named, but where's the 5?
The first one, 19. And Isaac digged in the valley and found a well of springing water. Right? And that is the water of life.
Living water.
Living water, okay.
Yeah.
21, Sitnah. 22, Rehoboth. And, okay, maybe it's 4.
No, 20 is Esek, and then 30
Esek,
is Sheba.
Sitnah, Rehoboth, and Beersheba. 5 wells.
Yeah.
So, what now, once you have that in place, we'll go back to Ruth chapter 1. Now, it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. We're placing that at 9:11, and our first point of reference is Genesis 26 in connection with Genesis 21, beginning and ending of Adventism, as illustrated by Abraham and Isaac. And now, what did someone want to say about what? Numbers 9 and the cloud moving. What do we know from Numbers 9 and the cloud moving? Go to Numbers 9. Whose argument is that?
Tamariz.
Tara Marie's. Okay, tell us about Numbers 9 and the cloud moving. Sister Tara Marie.
I heard it from Michael.
It doesn't matter who you heard it from.
I think because it says to tarry and not to move when the cloud is not moving. And the whole point is that in Ruth they moved.
Who moved? And his family.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the whole point. What goes with Numbers 9 and the cloud moving?
19.
Pardon me? No, what other scripture goes with the cloud?
Second Chronicle. Oh, with the
The
cloud.
cloud. There's
Where was it in 9?
Numbers 9.
Where?
You start in verse 15. You can read that, Sister Kathy.
And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle.
Now wait a second. What day was the tabernacle reared up in this chapter?
After
First
the
day,
second
first
Passover.
First day, first month.
In the first day of the first month. Where do you get that from?
It was after the second Passover, so it was the
9:1.
second month.
9:1. And the Lord spake.
What? No, they're not.
In the first month of the second year,
No, verse
That was
3, in the
number 3.
14th day of this month.
on the 14th, 15th,
14th day, you
16th.
need 1 and 3.
So where do you get that the Lord raised up the tabernacle on the first day of the first month? Because he did.
Because Ezra was given
It's-
permission to?
40. Exodus 40.
Exodus 40. Keep your finger in 9, and Kathy still gets to read. Exodus 40.
On the first, yeah, it's verse 2. And then all the way through like 15 or something like that.
So, verse 2 of Exodus 40 says, On the first day of the first month shalt thou set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation. And
It's verse 17 that it actually happens.
in verse 17, And it came to pass in the first month in the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up. Now go to Numbers 9. Verse 15, Sister Kathy.
And on the day that
When's the first day of the first month?
I'm a little lost. On Numbers 9, right here, Moses is basically given the command by the Lord that they can keep a second Passover in the second month. And it says on that day that the tabernacle was reared up. Which day is it? Is it the second month or is it the first month?
It's the first one.
It's the first month. You maybe you were lost because you weren't following along. Go back to 40s, Exodus 40, verse 2.
It had to be completed on that day.
It had to be raised up before they could have a Passover service. Read verse 2 of Exodus 40.
In 9:1 says on the first month, the second year.
Yeah. What's verse 2 say?
On the first day of the first month shalt thou set up the tabernacles of the tent of the congregation.
Now read verse 17.
And it came to pass in the first month in the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up.
When was the tabernacle reared up?
First month of the second year.
First day of the first month.
even though it was the second year, it's the same.
We're not worried about the year.
period.
First day of the first month.
Okay.
So now you go to Numbers 9, verse 15, Sister Kathy.
And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up.
When was the tabernacle reared
On the
up?
first day of the first month.
What's the first day of the first month?
The,
9/11.
9/11.
okay. Reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony, and even there was upon the tabernacle, as it were, the appearance of fire until the morning.
Keep going.
So it was always, the cloud covered it by day and the appearance of fire by night. How many?
All the way.
To where?
All the way to the end.
And when the cloud was, we should share this.
We are. We are.
And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after the children of Israel sojourned, and in the place where
Israel journeyed. After that, the children of Israel
and
journeyed.
in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord, they abode in their tents, and according to the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even into the morning, that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. And whether it were 2 days or a month or a year that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of the Lord, they rested in the tents. And at the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
Sister Christy, will you read Exodus 40, verses 34 to 38?
Exodus 34.
Exodus 40, verses 34 to 38.
Okay, 34. 34, and then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud were not taken up, then they journeyed not till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel, throughout all their journeys.
So, Isaac in Genesis 26 is at the time period where you return to the old past. When is that? 9/11. What's going on in that story?
At 9/11?
The cloud is.
There's a famine.
Oh, there's a famine.
There's a famine in the land.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a famine at 9/11. And
How do we know that there's a cloud covering at 9/11?
well, that's where we're going. Sister Brittany, read Revelation 10, verses 1 through... Revelation 10, verses 1 and 2.
And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the earth.
What angel is that?
Christ.
Jesus Christ.
It's Christ,
It's
but
the first angel.
it's the first. When does he arrive in history?
1989.
8/11.
August 11th, 1840. What happened that marks his arrival? The restraint of Islam. And when he came down, he's typifying what?
Revelation 18.
The angel of Revelation 18 that comes down when?
9/11.
So when he comes down, what is he clothed with?
A cloud.
A cloud.
Oh.
Verse 1, right?
Amen.
So when the angel comes down, he's clothed
I get
with
it.
a cloud. And he came down on August 11th, 1840. So,
Because it was worldwide. Is that the logic?
because it was worldwide, no, because it says so, but yeah, it was worldwide. It says clothed with a cloud.
No, I mean like August 11, 1840.
Yeah, it was
That
worldwide.
was
Oh, that's the argument for it.
But as
Oh,
far
you
as-
mean the argument that why is this angel typifying the angel of Revelation 18?
Why is it August 11, 1840? It's because it was a worldwide message. Is that why? He sets his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth.
Yeah, and Sister White speaks about the message going to the entire world in 1840.
Yeah.
But it's based upon the empowerment of all the reform lines. When the divine symbol comes down, it's empowered. You should know all
yeah,
this.
I should. I was just.
You get a demerit for today. All right. So, in our history up there at 9/11, the angel comes down and there's a cloud. But it's also the history of August 11th, 1840. So, Sister Tanya or Sister Tara Marie, read Daniel 7:13.
I saw in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him.
When was that, Sister Tara Marie? When did the Son of Man come to the Father with clouds?
October 22nd.
October 22nd, 1844, Sister Tara Marie. Okay, so
She was
what does October 20?
Matthew 24. Talks about that in Matthew 24, right?
That's it?
The coming of the Son.
No. This isn't the second coming.
That's the second.
This
They-
is not
they
the
mixed
second
these-
Oh,
coming.
it's not the second coming in Matthew 24. It's August 22nd.
They mixed the two.
Yeah,
The
mixed it.
pioneers thought that, Tara Marie. That's what they thought, but they mixed those two. There's two times, and they put those two together. One is October 22nd, 1844, but the other is the coming of Christ.
But that's not my point. Let's not get away from this. What does October 22nd, 1844 typify?
The Sunday law.
So what happens at the Sunday law?
The Son of Man comes.
The clouds move.
Yep.
They move from the holy place to the most holy place at that waymark, so the cloud moves at the Sunday law. So when's the cloud come down in our history?
9/11.
And when does it move?
It's going to move in
At
the
the
Sunday
sun.
law.
So what do we do from 9/11
We're
to the Sunday law?
tarrying.
We tarry in our tents.
Because the cloud is covered.
So where in Ruth chapter 1 is Elimelech in verse 1?
He said 9/11.
He's not tearing it.
Yeah, where he's at 9/11, but where is he?
He's at Bethlehem, Judah.
And what does Bethlehem, Judah mean?
Celebrated houses of
The
bread.
celebrated house of bread. At 9/11, what house is receiving the bread?
The house of David.
Judah.
Judah, David, Adventism. And what bread are they receiving?
The hidden manna.
The hidden manna. And when the bread comes down from heaven, because Jesus is the bread of heaven, what are they supposed to do?
Supposed to
Tarry.
and eat.
And eat, yeah.
And what did Elimelech do?
He
and his
he
wife.
traveled.
He didn't see the food. It
Where,
was hidden.
where did he go?
Moab.
Moab. To the he
He
went to
went to
find food
Babylon.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to Babylon. Why would he go to Babylon?
He's hungry.
Because there was food.
Lack of faith.
Lack of faith.
Because he
couldn't-
was starving.
He couldn't see the hidden
He was,
manna. It was hidden.
All those are probably
What do
true,
you call
but
it?
why else? This is a minor point, but why else did he go to Babylon?
Because he went on his own will.
Evangelism.
To do public evangelism.
Oh, well, yeah. Duh.
To do public evangelism. And what happens?
He
He
died.
His
died.
sons
He dies, and his sons die. His entire heritage is wiped out.
Once we have all that logic in place and we can understand that 9/11 is that famine in Ruth, if you read the next couple verses, you get the 10 years marked and the 2 sons dying, and we're going there. Never mind. So those points confirm already that our application's correct. If once you read it now in that context.
Secondary note is that I like to find in the Bible parallels, and Numbers 9:19 and Nehemiah 9:19 say the identical same thing. Not tarrying. So you got your second testimony, you don't even need to remember Numbers, Nehemiah. You know, that's just for myself. They're both about that cloud tarrying there.
Nehemiah what?
9:19, Numbers 9:19.
You have to read that now.
Yeah.
You're pulling this out of,
It's just a testimony too if you want to prove it to somebody, and it's easy to remember.
well, only somebody that would believe that the Lord
Why would he say
controlled the translation of the King James Bible.
9:19.
Nehemiah 9:19, yet that in thy manifold mercies forsook them not in the wilderness. The pillar of the cloud departed not from them by day to lead them in the way, neither the pillar of fire by night to show them light and the way wherein they should go.
It stayed there with them.
Okay, so back to Ruth chapter 1 verse 4. What are you saying, Michael? Okay, I'm going to say something for the person that asked the question on the internet. The primary reason for me why you're going to place Ruth at the story beginning at 9/11, the primary reason, even before you get to Ruth, is because the other prophetic testimony says that this structure of events is where all end-time Bible prophecy occurs. Okay, this is the effect of every vision. So you have the responsibility to take every vision and figure out where it lines up in here. So Michael wants us to look at verse 4. What is verse 4 telling us about Elimelech going into Moab?
And they took the wives of the women of Moab. The name of one was Orpah, the name of the other was Ruth, and they dwelt there about 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
So you got to put a 10 years either here, 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 or here.
And it's everywhere, but
Yeah, but you have to, by context, what is the number 10?
it's
A testing period.
period.
Okay, so where are we going to put that?
83.
Well, if we're marking famine at 9/11, you'd mark 10 years from that point leading to the midnight
But the
cry.
divorce happens based on other timelines at 9/11. In Esther's timeline, we have a divorce happening at 9/11. That's all right, though.
Oh, a divorce. What happens at 9/11
Strange
in
wives are put away. Divorce.
They're supposed to put away their strange wives.
They're supposed to put away their strange
Or
wives
some
at
do,
9/11.
or some
So
do,
the
others
10 years
don't.
had to come before that.
Why?
Because they got married. You can't have a divorce if you haven't been married.
Can't have.
You have to have already been married to get a divorce. I'm
She's
sure.
got several thoughts going. She
Yeah, I don't get
question.
I don't get the connection there. Elimelech, if we're putting Elimelech here, and that's where we're putting him, he's going into Moab here. What's this got to do with him getting a divorce? When does Elimelech get a divorce?
When he dies.
He doesn't.
He doesn't get a
Oh,
divorce.
He's getting out of the contract. That,
Getting out of what
I
contract?
mean, he's getting out of the marriage, he's dying, so.
She might
Is
be
that what
mixing it with
That mu-
Esther.
But it's still not divorced.
Not divorce.
Yeah, mixing it with Esther.
Well,
They
Okay,
did the
so she's- I
They
think
did the
what-
opposite of what they were supposed to do.
Well, okay, let's put it
what
this
she's saying is
way.
the two sons get
If
married.
if we have the 10 years, and Bronwyn wants to put the 10 years here, in this history, Elimelech and his two sons die.
We already agreed there was a famine at 89 based on the.
Oh, yeah, we agreed that there was a famine. We didn't prove it like the famine here. So, why does he die?
Oh, you can't mark a tarrying time at 9. He wasn't disobeying a commandment.
He wasn't disobeying a commandment if he left in 1989, was he?
Because the cloud hadn't tarried there.
The angel hadn't came down, the cloud hasn't been marked.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right.
So you can't put the 10 there. If you're saying that his death and the death of his sons is a judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, his death and the death of his sons take place at two different waymarks.
Yes, and that's important to understand, I think, because his death is happening, not right at, but right in the context of 9/11, and his sons happened 10 years later. They took strange wives right around that time, and they dwelt there for 10 years. But the important thing is that these two sons, when they die, they're marking a point. If we're marking the 10 years from 9/11 to the Midnight Cry, they're marking a point of two people, which we've already seen many of those twos at Midnight Cry.
Doubling.
The doubling, but the two evil people, like put them that way, right? The two bad guys.
The two wicked.
Yeah, the two wicked.
The wise and the wicked is what they're called in Daniel 12. So we have Elimelech dying right down here. Somewhere in here. And his two sons dying somewhere down here. And because it says about 10 years, right? So this 10 years, Michael's saying the two sons dying here is
The doubling of the
the
evil.
doubling that takes place at the Midnight Cry.
Hophni and Phinehas and Nadab and Abihu. Sickness and
9/11
desolation.
is where they took the two wives.
That,
9/11, they go
his two
into
sons
Moab,
die,
and
yeah.
Right,
shortly thereafter they take the two wives.
right, because from then on is 10 years after they take the 10. After
So
they take
much
the-
happens.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
That's why it gives you an about, because it's somewhere in that
Yeah.
period.
It's being vague so you can see all the men dying in this history.
In the first 5 verses of this book, there's so much that takes place in the first 5 verses
Yeah.
of
It's
this
nice
book.
though because it sets the context for you so you can see the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so remind us what Malon and Chilean mean.
Sickness and
Sickness
desolation.
and failure.
Sickness and desolation.
Sickness and desolation.
And Elimelech means,
My God is king.
and what does Abimelech mean in the story of Isaac and Abraham?
The
Father
father.
is king.
The father is king, son of the king, a little bit different, but related, the Melech.
No, God of the kings.
All right, so anyway, this is why all I want to do is for those that we may not have been clear with on the internet, see the logic for placing
Ruth.
the story of Ruth beginning at 9/11. And as I said at the beginning, the strongest logic is the next chapters. But you can see it in the first chapter. Why is the strongest logic in the next chapters? Okay, because when Ruth comes back with Naomi, we're placing it at the Midnight Cry. And what happens to Naomi?
Her name is changed.
Her name's changed, so there's a covenant here. Is there a covenant?
What's those
Mark
little
two.
one twos right there?
The sons.
That's the two sons dying
Oh, two.
in this
Okay,
history.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And
At the Midnight Cry.
Okay.
at the Midnight Cry, right in here. I got it on this side because, but it's connected.
'Cause
And
that's
she
the
comes,
doubling,
we're
that's
saying
the
she comes
doubling.
back at the midnight cry, and when she comes back, the city is astir, and what do they do?
The feast?
They ask her a question.
Oh, the inquiry.
Oh, the
There's
inquiry.
inquiry is there. And ultimately, Ruth's going to be gleaning in the barley harvest, and what happens to her? She gets married to Boaz. Where's the marriage? At the Sunday law. And how many, this is a key point, how many people are there to witness it? 10. There are 10 witnesses. Okay? Sunday law, the 6th kingdom goes down and the 7th kingdom arrives. So it's the 7th kingdom.
Yeah.
The 10 kings. So it's all there if you want to go back through it.
Also, too, when the name's changed and it's changed to Mara, or she says, call me Mara, Mara is the root of Mary, and Mary is marked at the midnight cry from the line of Elizabeth.
Yep.
So,
And then they change it to Sunday law and then a covenant with the new people.
yep.
Yeah, and there's even, and I don't know how to trace this through, but in the story of, it's probably there, but I haven't dug it out. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, pillar and salt both occur the same amount of times in the scriptures. And I forget what it was, I think it's like 31 times each. And I know that you've all heard the sermon, but it's clear that pillar and salt both represent covenant. It represents other things. It represents other things. But primarily, both of them, it represents covenant. And there's 2 pillars in the temple, and one of them is named Boaz.
35 times.
Okay, pardon me? 35 and 35? Okay. And the point being is, we're beginning to understand that there can be 2 things. Boaz here, representing the marriage, could be the institution of marriage, or it could be the institution of Sabbath. These 2 pillars, we don't know what the other pillar, I don't have the slightest idea what that other pillar, and it has a name. Anyone remember the name?
Pharaoh's.
Pharaoh's, I know.
Okay, so I don't know what that represents. I don't know what the one pillar of Boaz represents. But it could be the 2 institutions of marriage and Sabbath, and you'd see Boaz here as a symbol of marriage. But it could be the 2 pillars that Samson takes down. What are those 2 pillars?
Sunday sacredness.
Sunday sacredness and
immortality.
Immortality of the soul. But there's something about, I don't think the 2 pillars in the sanctuary would represent the 2 false doctrines of Rome, but there's something to struggle through with that.
Wasn't Pharez the sign of Judah through his daughter-in-law? He was one of the twins. His name was Pharez.
Was it? You're positive? Because that too would be a marriage, an unholy marriage. Anyway, let's go back to Esther while she's looking out Pharez. So for anyone on the web that has got lost recently, that's not a strong, in-depth study of Ruth, but that's the logic why we put it there.
Why do you think the immortality of the soul in some way, the evil pillar lines up with the marriage, since we know Sunday sacredness is the exact opposite of the Sabbath? How would the immortality of the soul be the exact opposite of marriage?
I don't think that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
You know, I'm not
Jacob.
paralleling them.
it's what?
It's Jacob.
Jacob.
Jacob and Boaz.
Jachin, Jachan.
Yep.
Sorry.
Jake, and it means he will establish.
Jachin.
Jacob and Boaz. So where else does Jacob appear in the scriptures?
I'm not even sure who that
Is
is.
that the covenant? Yeah, the name of the. Is that the other name of the pillar?
Yeah, Jacob.
Can someone looking where Jacob occurs in the scriptures
Can I
other
spell
than
it?
there?
Jachin.
J-A-C.
I'm looking up where Jacob appears. I'm trying to. Something I froze.
J-A-C-H-I?
Jachin. I don't know if it's Jakin or Jachin.
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 Does it
Like
end in
Jachin.
N?
Jachin.
Jachin. We all know that we can't pronounce
That's
names.
not spelled correct. Jachi?
Ken?
E-M.
E-I-R-A.
Okay.
E-I-R-A.
What?
I-N. Jachin.
I-N. J-A-Chin. I think it only occurs in that pillar that when I looked at it, but I'm not sure.
Oh, in Genesis 46:10 is the first mention. The sons of Simeon. He's the son of Simeon.
Son of Simeon. What's Simeon mean?
Simeon means hearing, and Jacob
Jared.
means God will establish.
Where are you
Jared
at?
is another word for Jacob.
Genesis 46:10.
Jared.
Where's the pillar?
He's mentioned 8 times in the Bible.
In Solomon's
In
temple.
Solomon's temple, he built 2 pillars up.
They were copper, brass, or bronze pillars.
So hearing and marriage. Yeah, you could put hearing at the midnight cry and marriage at the Sunday law.
Mine says Jamin.
Jachi.
Yours said,
Jachi, J2?
what yours says J-A-M.
No, Jamin. There's a Jamin and there's a Jason. J-M.
He was a priest.
Because it will be
J-
established.
I
J-
think
was
this
a
might be
priest.
confusing to
The-
we've got about 1,000
He
thoughts
was a
going on.
priest.
He was a priest.
And he was given the lot when they're dividing the priest, the 120th lot.
Oh,
Oh,
whoa.
that's great.
He was given the 120th lot.
The one
he was a priest, and he was
Numbers
Simeonite.
24:17.
Numbers what?
No.
24:17.
No. He was given the 21st lot. The
No,
1 and 20th.
1 and 20th to Jacob.
Yeah, the 1 and 20th is
21st.
21st.
Oh, yeah.
1 and
Oh.
20. You gotta add.
Oh, sorry.
I was going.
You got us
I was like
all
1
excited
and 20th.
that
That'd be
it's not.
super cool.
So he's a
Whatever.
priest and he's a Simeonite. So where do you place him? Where do you place that pillar? At the midnight cry. He's a priest,
Oh, yeah, he's established
Oh.
at the
He's a
midnight
Simeonite.
cry.
and
I thought the
he's
Levites were at the midnight cry. The
yeah. That's
priests
where
are-
they start developing, but the priests are established at
There's
the
a lot of
midnight cry.
overlap on
I
that.
see.
They said that Jachin is also called Jarib. Jarib. My, says right here.
So he has 2 names.
There's
Yeah.
2 Jacobs. One Michael named one son of Simeon, and this one says the son of Joyarim.
They're all from Simeon initially.
Oh.
Jachin was from Simeon, but this other guy was also a Simeonite, I think.
Hearing.
If I understand it right, but
So they're hearing the word of the Lord at the midnight cry. Perhaps those are the 2 pillars.
yeah.
Jachin at the midnight cry and Boaz at the Sunday law. That's where you put Boaz, probably marriage. And he's marrying Ruth,
Ruth.
11th hour workers. So that's the pillar there. And so what does Jarib mean? Let's finish it off. What does that tell us about Jachin? He's got a name change, covenant at the midnight cry. He's got 2 names.
The first mention, it says those 2 names. So.
Jehovah will contend.
Jehovah will contend. Ah, that's where the contention takes place.
Jarib is
That's
Jehovah will
Jeroboam is
Jeroboam.
contention.
Jared. Okay.
Okay, that puts it at the midnight cry. Jeroboam 2, that's contention. That's the argument of the image of the
He's
beast.
the name on. I don't know. I'm sure it makes a difference, but Jachin's on the right and Boaz is on the left. So I don't know what the significance of
right,
that
we're
left
doing
one.
with Jarib. We've already passed that.
All right, cool.
And what's Satan's? Are they right and left? Do we know which ones they are?
Those are 2 different pillars.
In the
But they're
Masonic
all-
Lodge, they use those 2 pillars in their temples, in the Masonic Lodge.
We don't care about
It's
counterfeits.
a counter, what she said.
Yeah. No, she's not saying that.
Oh.
She's saying the 2 primary doctrines that Rome deceives the world with is the immortality of the soul and Sunday sacredness. And that's no doubt what Samson broke down to kill the Philistines when he was blind at the end of his life, when he killed more than he'd done in his whole life. Nobody has any more input on Jarib other than its contention, connected with Jeroboam.
Drive,
That's the midnight cry. That's the 2 pillars.
contentious, an adversary.
So it's joining of the two sticks.
And the other one is will establish?
Yeah, he will establish. Isn't that what Jehoiachin's name means? Or Jehoiachin? Establish? And this is in the time of the establishing of the tabernacle.
Yeah.
And we mark Jehoiachin in one sense at the midnight cry, so
Yeah.
we have a second witness to that.
You got 3 witnesses. Okay.
How do you guys-
Jachin, Jared, Jehoiachin.
How do you guys get your
Jeroboam.
definition so quickly on your
E-sword.
names?
I use
E-sword?
E-sword.
Oh, I see.
When Sister Christy teaches you how to use it,
Well,
you'll be able to
Will
do
you
it.
tell me where that's at and all that?
It's right in the bookcase.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll help you download it. They helped me download it on the Kindle.
we're not going to get back to Esther today. So what we're saying though, but we didn't intend to do this, but we're saying that here, this pillar is Jachin, and this pillar is Boaz. Pardon me?
The pillars are reversed.
They're reversed.
Yeah, the names.
Maybe we should look at this from the other side of the board. You're saying that this is the left
Yep.
Yeah.
and this is the right.
Yep.
Why would that be? We could be there is no
Hebrews
reason
read left.
why
right,
we
left.
couldn't do it this way, is there?
Well, the prophetic mirror you've done before.
No, this ain't the prophetic mirror, but there is no reason. Why do we do it the way that we do it?
Because we write left to right.
Because it's a dilemma.
But not everyone does.
Hebrews don't.
Well, neither do the Chinese.
Yeah,
They go
so
up and down.
But regardless, their right was the right and their left was the left. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's right. How they read and write is different than what they regard as right and left.
Right. Oh, is it?
Or is
I don't
it?
know what you're saying.
If they read from this way, they would get the Boaz first,
So what's the name of Boaz?
not
means?
second.
no, but it doesn't matter what they would get
But
first.
that's
The
the way
scriptures
Right.
say
Did you-
there is talking about the relationship to each other. One was on the right, one was on the left.
Did you read 1 Kings 7, or was I?
Go ahead.
1 Kings 7:21, and he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and called the name thereof Jachin, and he set up the left pillar, and called the name thereof Boaz.
So he said Jacob
There you
first.
go.
I know how to solve it then. Where are we supposed to be at 9/11?
In the sanctuary.
In the sanctuary.
Yeah.
So when we see the pillars, what are we doing? We're looking from the inside.
Yeah.
Solomon's looking from the outside.
From the outside.
So we're seeing it. We're seeing it
Inside
correct
out.
right here.
You're looking from the inside out.
We're looking at these things from in the sanctuary.
So we would be the
If it's important to make it right or left, if that is, it is. Okay, all right. If you think so,
So does it matter what the name of Boaz means?
what does it mean?
Oh,
It's a lot of times it says
Strength,
meaning uncertain.
Quickness,
That's right.
swiftness. There's some people here on the internet, quickness or swiftness, strength.
Strength,
for Boaz, fleetness.
fleetness. Okay.
That's quickness.
Sunday law goes as fire in the stubble. Final movements will be rapid ones.
Quickness.
And if it was the immortality of the soul of the midnight cry, that would make sense if that was the pillar, because that's when you're going to start seeing.
You want to
examples.
line up the counterfeit pillars with these two
I know you
pillars.
can. I know you'll be able to. We may not today.
Why?
Because
Because there's a counterfeit for everything.
Okay, so
that's
you're
real.
saying the counterfeit is obviously Sunday. There's
yeah,
a
but
counterfeit
we
pillar.
have Satan's manifestation of his work starting at the midnight cry,
So the other one is the immortality of the soul.
and he'll be bringing forth dead people, is what I'm assuming.
While the miracles are
Because
So-
that's when the mysterious knock.
Yeah, this
will
is
be
this is
happening.
where the false healings begin. They
Yes.
escalate at the Sunday law. But how does
That's where the real
Jachin,
ones come in.
Jacob.
Jachin, Jareb,
Line up with the immortality of the
the
soul.
immortality of the soul?
I don't know. I just think the will.
What is the immortality of the soul?
spiritualism.
Spiritualism.
It's the counterfeit incarnation.
Yeah,
It's the counterfeit incarnation.
yeah. And that's the midnight cry.
And the incarnation is the midnight cry. Is it not the counterfeit incarnation?
Yeah.
Is it?
Mary.
You're being possessed with demons.
Elizabeth, 6 months.
Yeah. But it's not really people being possessed with demons, it's demons pretending to be
People.
Dead people.
dead people. Is that a counterfeit
Well, plus
incarnation?
there will be demon possession.
It's counterfeit. It's counterfeit resurrection.
That's
You definitely have the resurrection here of Lazarus and
Resurrection
Christ.
of the dead
Yeah.
in an evil way.
But how does the incarnation come, the counterfeit comes before the real one?
Yeah.
How does that happen before midnight cry?
Well, we see the Sunday law pillars already set up at 9/11, even though it hasn't been cemented. We know it's at 9/11 because they've already got the Sunday law, and you can see workings in the right now in the media with the dead coming back, and it's becoming a big deal.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Adventism had just made a movie trying to bring back, like reliving the past in the way they kind of want to see it. Isn't that kind of a incarnation? I mean, I don't know.
This, you can tie in the immortality of the soul with the Garden of Eden, and that's where the marriage of Adam and Eve was destroyed.
Interesting.
Because thou shalt not surely die if you eat of this fruit. And then she goes and passes this story on to Adam, and he submits to her. That's the corruption of their marriage. And that's a definite tie-in with the immortality of the soul. That's where it all begins. So it's probably, those are probably the two pillars, and the two counterfeit pillars are there too. But what's the...
Sunday, what's the Jacob?
The counterfeit is the immortality of the soul.
Oh, yeah.
Jacob means also Jared.
Establish.
He was the son of Joyrib.
He was what?
The son of
Who was the son of?
Jacob.
Was the son of who?
Joyrib.
Jehoiarim?
Joyrib.
Jared.
Okay.
He was the son of. I thought he said it was. Someone said he has another name.
Yeah, it says it down here. Or Jared. That's what it says in
Jacob,
Genesis
Jared,
46, first mention. It says Jacob, and the marginal reference, or Jared.
Jarib.
Yep, Jacob.
So he has
Jared.
two names in this. Maybe, I don't know. We're trusting the marginal reference.
Jacob means establish.
Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm confused. Okay, it says in Nehemiah 11:10, of the priest Jediah, the son of Joyrib, Jacob. So who are they saying is also named Jacob? Either Joyrib or Jediah?
Joyrib is also named Jacob. That's how I took that to mean the name.
Spell it for me, Joarib.
It means the exact same thing as Jor.
J what?
Joirib. Oh, Arib.
Nehemiah what? Whitney?
11:10.
Joyrib.
Okay.
Nehemiah 11:10.
Thank you.
I don't know.
And it has this some of the same meaning as Jeroboam. Contention. That's Jeroboam means contention, means flock. So this connects with Jeroboam 2 right here. And Jachin connects.
Or Jero.
Jachin connects with Jehoiachin.
Chin.
All right, so you got a connection there, and Jehoiachin is at this way mark. See, he's at this way mark too, but he's here at this one. And they're Simeonites, which means hearing. This is where the 11th hour workers begin to hear the message in this contentious time.
Brittany, go to 1 Chronicles 9:10.
1 Chronicles 9:10.
It says, and the priests, exact same people's names, but said differently. And it's obviously not the exact same situation, but it says, and of the priests, Jedediah, Jehoiarib, and Jacob. So it puts them separate as three different priests. But then in Nehemiah, it says, of the priests, Jedediah, the son of Joiarib, and then Jacob. So it's like the same. I don't understand.
So they're all three different people.
Yeah.
Three different people is what it looks like.
And it's interesting, it says
But in Nehemiah, it's completely different than First Chronicles.
if you put them together, it says Jehovah
Let's
has
leave
one.
him out of the mix then.
Well, Jacob still another name for Jacob, according to the margin, is still Joyrib. Joyrib.
Why are we casting doubt on it then?
Brittany was saying she wasn't sure if it was that person.
No, I was just unsure because it seems like they're either differentiated altogether, all three of them, or one of them is named twice in here. But I don't know. Jediah, the son of Joiarib, comma Jacob.
That sounds like Joiarib is Jacob.
Yeah. In that.
Yeah, but Nehemiah separates them. It's confusing. Or First Chronicles separates all three of them.
But First Chronicles is a completely different time period than Nehemiah. First Chronicles
It takes place before the Babylonian captivity. This
First
is
Chronicles,
the second story.
Yeah, this is another story. This is a different numbering, but it's interesting that they're all still combined in Nehemiah. There's something to that, I'm sure.
In the same verse. All three of them are in the same verse.
Again.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Sister Christy?
I've got right here, it says, the fourth son of Simeon, and it says, and his name was given Jerub, which is the Jachonites, however you say it, and it says, head of the 21st course of priests in the time of David. It is used as a family name in 1 Chronicles 9:10, and as such also in Nehemiah 11:10, where some of the course are included in the list of those who, having returned from Babylon, willingly accepted the decision of the lot and abandoned their rural retreats to become citizens and guardians of Jerusalem. Nehemiah 11:1.
How do you spell it again?
O-I-A. No E. O-I-A. Joiarib.
Okay. Not for this. We didn't get to Esther.
It's interesting that in Ezra 10:18, Jerub is mentioned as one that has taken strange wives.
Yeah, that would
And
be.
there's only 5 mentioned that have taken strange wives.
5 foolish virgins. You want to pray, Brittany?
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you for the rain that we've had, and I ask that you bless our plants. I thank you for this study that we just took in, and I ask that you help us to come to understand the things that are left in this study. And I pray also that you be with us today in our work. Please help us to glorify you in all things.